Stop what you are doing right now, because what I am about to tell you is not a motivational speech. It is not a feel-good message designed to make you comfortable. It is a direct word from heaven about your finances, about the specific lack you have been living with, about the prayers you have prayed in private that nobody around you knows about, and about what God is about to do, suddenly, without warning, in a way that will leave you standing in your own life completely speechless. Stay right here. This is for you. There is a word that God uses in the scriptures that most people read past without fully stopping to feel the weight of it. The word is suddenly, not gradually, not eventually, not after a long and visible process of accumulation and growth that allows the people around you to track the progress and predict the outcome. Suddenly, without warning, without a visible buildup. Without the kind of logical sequence that the human mind requires in order to believe that something is actually happening. God moves suddenly. And in this season of your life, in this specific, particular, carefully chosen moment, He is about to move suddenly in the area of your finances. I need you to hear that not as a vague spiritual hope, but as a specific, grounded, spiritually confirmed word. Because the God who spoke the universe into existence, the God who opened the Red Sea in a single night, the God who fed thousands from what looked like nothing, the God who has never once been limited by the natural logic of what is possible, that God is not indifferent to your financial situation. He is not distant from the stress you carry about money. He is not sitting in heaven waiting for you to figure it out on your own. He is actively, intentionally, sovereignly working on your behalf right now in ways you cannot see but that are absolutely undeniably real. And the breakthrough is closer than your circumstances are telling you. But before I go deeper into what God is releasing in your financial life, I need to talk to you about something that most people in the spiritual world are too polite to say directly. I need to talk to you about the specific weight of financial struggle in the life of a chosen one, because it is different from what other people experience. It carries a particular ache, a particular confusion, a particular crisis of faith that most people around you will never fully understand. Because you know in the deepest part of yourself that you were not made for lack. This is not arrogance. This is not entitlement. This is a spiritual knowing that runs deeper than anything your circumstances have been able to drown out, no matter how hard they have tried. You have always sensed, even in the worst of the financial seasons, even when the numbers did not add up, even when the account was empty and the bills were due and the pressure was physical, sitting in your chest like something heavy that would not lift, you have always sensed that this is not the full story of your life, that the God who placed a calling on you and equipped you with gifts that go far beyond what most people carry did not design your financial reality to be a permanent wall between you and everything He called you to do. That sensing was not denial. That sensing was not delusion. That sensing was prophecy. Your spirit, which has access to information your circumstances do not, was reading the truth of what God intended for your life rather than simply reporting the current conditions. And today, heaven is confirming what your spirit already knew. The financial struggle you have been walking through is not your destiny. It was never your destiny. It is a season with a specific beginning and a specific end. And the end of that season is approaching with a speed that your circumstances have not yet caught up to. Now, I want to be careful here because I want to be honest with you and not just comfortable with you. The financial blessing that God is releasing in your life is not arriving as a reward for perfect behavior. It is not payment for the amount of faith you managed to sustain in your hardest moments. It is not something you earned by being good enough or praying enough or believing enough with sufficient consistency. If it were dependent on any of those things, none of us would ever receive anything from God. It is arriving as the fulfillment of a promise that was made before you were born, as the release of a provision that was prepared in eternity for a purpose that your life was always pointed toward, as the outworking of a divine plan that has been moving forward, underground, unseen, patient, unstoppable, through every season of your financial life, including the hardest ones, especially the hardest ones. Because here is what most people do not understand about financial seasons of lack in the lives of chosen ones. They are not random. They are not the result of bad luck or cosmic indifference or God looking the other way while life happened to you. They are one of the primary environments in which God builds the specific qualities in a chosen one that cannot be built any other way. Think about what financial pressure produces in a person. When money is tight, genuinely tight, the kind of tight where you make calculations in your head that you would be embarrassed for anyone around you to know you are making, something happens inside you. It reveals things. It reveals your real relationship with trust. It shows you where your security actually comes from, not where you think it comes from on a good day, but where it actually lives when the pressure is real. It reveals your character, whether you will compromise your integrity for financial relief, whether you will take shortcuts that cost you something internal in exchange for something external. It reveals your relationship with God, whether your faith in Him is contingent on visible provision or whether it can survive in the absence of it. These are not small revelations. These are the things that determine whether a person can be trusted with significant resources, because God does not give financial increase to people before they have developed the internal architecture to steward it well. Not because He is withholding something good, but because He understands that money in the hands of a person who has not been prepared for it, who has not been tested in the areas of trust, character, and relationship with God, has a tendency to become a problem rather than a provision. You have been in that preparation. You may not have called it that. You may have called it suffering or struggle or the relentless difficulty of trying to do the right things and not getting the right results. But that is what it was: preparation, the formation of the internal qualities, the trust, the integrity, the God-centeredness that make you someone who can receive significant financial blessing and not be destroyed by it. And now the preparation is giving way to the promise. Let me talk about the specific signs that a financial shift is imminent in the life of a chosen one, because God does not move suddenly without first sending quiet signals to the person He is about to bless. Signals that most people dismiss as coincidence or wishful thinking, but that are, when you know what to look for, unmistakable indicators that heaven is about to break through in the natural realm. The first sign is an unusual peace about your financial situation that arrived without logical cause. Have you noticed this recently? A moment or a series of moments where you looked at a financial situation that should have produced anxiety, that in the past would have produced anxiety, and instead felt something that can only be described as settled. Not because the numbers improved, not because anything in the visible situation changed, but because something in your spirit shifted, because a quiet confidence arrived that the situation is handled, not by you, not by any visible provision, but by God. That peace is not wishful thinking. That peace is the Holy Spirit giving your spirit advance notice of what is about to arrive in the natural. When God is about to move financially in the life of a chosen one, He first quiets their spirit. He first settles the inner environment so that when the blessing arrives, it lands in a place of faith rather than a place of frantic grasping. If you have felt that peace recently, even briefly, even mixed with the ordinary anxiety that your circumstances still produce, that is a sign. The second sign is a series of small, seemingly unrelated events that are beginning to position things differently around you. This is subtle. It does not look like a financial breakthrough from the outside. It looks like a conversation that went in an unexpected direction, a connection that happened in what seemed like an ordinary moment, an idea that arrived fully formed in your mind during a routine part of your day, an idea that surprised you with its clarity and its specificity, a door that has been closed for a long time that suddenly, without drama, appears to be slightly ajar. These are not random. These are God-moving pieces on a board you cannot fully see. Repositioning things, aligning people and opportunities and timing in ways that are building toward a moment of convergence. A moment where several streams of provision, which have been moving toward each other from different directions, suddenly meet. And what they produce at their meeting point is the sudden financial blessing that you have been praying for, waiting for, holding on to through every season of drought. Pay attention to the small movements around you right now. They are not small. They are the beginning of the breakthrough. The third sign is an intensification of spiritual attack in the area of your finances specifically. This sounds counterintuitive, but it is one of the most reliable indicators that a financial breakthrough is imminent, because the enemy is not omniscient. He does not know the exact timing of what God is about to do, but he can feel the movement of heaven. He can sense when the spiritual atmosphere around a chosen one is changing, and when he senses that a significant provision is about to be released, when he can feel the spiritual pressure building toward a breakthrough, his response is always to try to get the chosen one to give up one step before it happens. He intensifies the discouragement. He amplifies the voices that say it is not coming. He sends situations that appear to be final confirmations that the waiting was pointless. He engineers moments of apparent setback designed to look like doors closing permanently when they are actually doors closing temporarily to be replaced by better ones. If things have felt particularly difficult in the financial area recently, if the pressure has felt sharper, the doubt louder, the temptation to give up stronger than usual, that is not evidence that the breakthrough is further away than you thought. That is evidence that it is closer. Welcome back, chosen one. Let me continue with what God is releasing in your financial life in this season, because there is more that heaven needs you to understand. Not just about the blessing that is coming, but about your role in receiving it, about the specific things God is asking of you in this season, and about the shape that the blessing is going to take when it arrives. I want to talk about something that is rarely discussed in conversations about financial blessing, something that makes many people uncomfortable because it requires a level of honesty about our inner relationship with money that most of us would rather avoid. The conversation about worthiness, not worthiness in the sense of earning God's favor. We have already established that this blessing is not about earning, but worthiness in a different sense. The question of whether deep in the interior of your life, you actually believe that you are someone God would bless financially. Whether you actually believe, not as a theological concept, but as a lived, felt, functional reality, that significant financial provision belongs in your story, that it is part of what God designed for you, that your name is on the blessing and not just on the waiting. Because for many chosen ones, and this is one of the places where the enemy has been most strategic and most effective, there is a subterranean belief running beneath all the conscious faith, a belief that says, maybe this works for other people, but not for me. Maybe I am the exception. Maybe the financial breakthrough that others receive is reserved for the kind of person I have not yet become. Maybe there is something fundamentally wrong with my relationship with money, with success, with abundance. That means I will always be on the outside of it looking in. This belief is a lie. It is a specifically crafted, precisely aimed lie that was designed to neutralize one of the most powerful forces available to a chosen one, the expectant faith that positions you to actually receive what God is releasing. Because here is a spiritual principle that cannot be overstated. You cannot receive what you do not believe belongs to you. Not because God withholds what you doubt, but because unbelief, genuine, functional, operating beneath the surface unbelief, closes your hands. It closes your eyes to opportunities that are standing right in front of you. It programs you to unconsciously reject the things that are trying to reach you. It creates an invisible barrier between the provision God is releasing and the person He is releasing it to. And so heaven needs you to do something today that might feel more difficult than any financial decision you have ever made. It needs you to agree. To agree out loud, in your own voice, spoken into the real air of the real room you are sitting in right now, that financial blessing belongs in your story, that you are not the exception, that the God who promised provision to His people meant it specifically for you as much as He meant it for anyone who has ever received it, that the lack you have been living with is not your permanent address, that abundance, not extravagance, not waste, but genuine, more than enough, able to fulfill your purpose abundance, is what God designed for the life of someone He called and equipped and prepared the way He called and equipped and prepared you. Say it right now, out loud. Speak it into the atmosphere of wherever you are. God's financial blessing belongs to my story. I am not the exception. I receive it now. Those words, spoken in sincere agreement with what heaven is releasing, do something. They shift the atmosphere. They align your inner world with the movement of heaven. They open the hands that fear had been holding closed. Now let me talk about the specific forms that this financial breakthrough is likely to take. Because God is creative in the ways He releases provision. He is rarely limited to the one channel that our logical minds have decided is the only possible source. And one of the most common mistakes chosen ones make when waiting for financial blessing is watching one door so intently that they miss the window that God opened 3 rooms away. The first form is an unexpected source. This is perhaps the most classically divine form of provision, the source that you never anticipated, that logic never would have predicted, that did not exist on your radar as a possible channel of blessing. It might arrive through a person you have not spoken to in years who suddenly reaches out with an opportunity. It might arrive through a skill or gift you possess that you have never thought to monetize. Something that comes so naturally to you that you have never considered it extraordinary, but that someone else suddenly recognizes as exactly what they need and is willing to pay for in a way that surprises you. It might arrive through a legal settlement, an inheritance, a refund, a contract, a partnership, a platform. It might arrive through something so specific to your situation that I cannot name it here because it belongs entirely to your story and not to a general description. What I can tell you is this: keep your eyes open in all directions. Do not be so focused on the one channel you have been watching that you miss the unexpected source that God is routing His provision through. When something arrives that surprises you, especially in a financial context, do not dismiss it as too good to be true. That dismissal is the enemy using your own caution against you. Test it with wisdom. Move with discernment, but do not let fear masquerade as prudence and cause you to close the door that God specifically opened. The second form is multiplication. This is the form that most closely mirrors the miraculous provision you see throughout the Scriptures. The little that becomes much, the 5 loaves and 2 fish that feed thousands with abundance left over, the widow's oil that kept flowing as long as she kept pouring, the pattern of God taking what seems inadequate, what seems like not enough, what seems like it should run out, and multiplying it past the point of logic. You may be in a situation right now where what you have feels dangerously inadequate, where the resources you are working with seem to fall so far short of what is needed that the gap feels impossible. Heaven is saying to you directly, that gap is exactly where I work. I do not multiply abundance, I multiply insufficiency. Give me what you have. Move forward in obedience with what is in your hand, and watch what I do with the not enough that your honesty offers me. The third form is restoration. This is the form that is perhaps the most personal, the most tender, the most specific to your story. Restoration of what was lost, financial ground that was taken from you through betrayal, through circumstances beyond your control, through decisions made from a place of survival rather than a place of vision. Being returned, not just replaced, restored with interest, with the compounding of time and God's faithfulness added onto the principle of what was taken. The Scriptures use a specific language for this, what the locust has eaten. The years that were consumed not by your failure, but by forces that came against you in seasons when you did not yet have the armor to resist them. God says He will restore those years, not approximately, not partially, fully, with surplus. With a restoration so complete that the people who witness the loss will be the same people who witness the return and stand speechless before the evidence of what God has done. That restoration has your name on it. Now, I want to speak about the assignment that accompanies the blessing, because financial provision in the life of a chosen one is never simply personal. It is never simply about your comfort or your security or your relief from pressure. Though it is all of those things, and God cares about all of those things, it is always also pointed at something larger, at a purpose, at an assignment that requires resources to fulfill, at a calling that has been waiting on the provision to move forward, at people who will be blessed, helped, freed, transformed, because you stepped into the fullness of what God designed you to carry, and the resources were there to support the carrying. When the financial blessing arrives, receive it with open hands. Use it wisely, yes. Build security, yes. Relieve the pressure that has been weighing on your daily life, yes. But keep your eyes open for the larger purpose it is serving. Keep asking the God who sent it what He had in mind when He released it. Because the full story of your financial breakthrough is not just a personal testimony. It is part of a larger movement that God is orchestrating through your life in this season. You are a channel, not just a container. Let me close with the most important thing I need to leave with you. In the next days and weeks and months, when the breakthrough has not yet arrived and the circumstances are still speaking the language of lack, I need you to remember this conversation. Not as a nice video you watched that made you feel better for a few hours, but as a word from heaven that was spoken over your financial life with authority and with love and with the full weight of a God who has never once failed to fulfill what He promised. Remember it on the morning when the account looks the same and the anxiety tries to return. Remember it when someone around you asks you how you are doing financially, and you have to decide whether to speak the truth of your circumstances or the truth of your faith. Remember it in the quiet moments of doubt when the enemy whispers that nothing is changing and nothing ever will. Heaven spoke over your finances today. Heaven said, closer than you think. Sudden, unexpected source. Multiplication, restoration, purpose, more than enough. Heaven said, I see the faithfulness of this one. I see the prayers they have prayed in private. I see the integrity they have maintained under financial pressure when it would have been so much easier to compromise. I see the faith they have held onto by their fingernails in the darkest financial nights, and I am responding. Not eventually, not someday, now. Walk forward, chosen one. Walk forward as someone who knows that the provision is on its way. Not with recklessness, not by ignoring practical wisdom, but with the particular quality of boldness that belongs to someone who has received a direct word from heaven and has chosen to agree with it rather than argue with it. The financial blessing is closer than you think, closer than your bank account is telling you, closer than your circumstances are showing you, closer than the enemy wants you to believe, and when it arrives, suddenly, abundantly, in ways that will leave you standing in your own story, completely breathless, remember this moment. Remember that heaven told you it was coming before you could see any evidence that it was, and give God every single piece of the glory, because every single piece of it belongs to Him.